Hello and welcome to Who Would Win in a Fight. Today I want to touch on a topic that really gets under the skin of most boxing fans and any fan of any sport that this happens to. It's the topic of bad decisions and robberies in boxing. Now unfortunately boxing is one of the sports where in the end the decision is made by people. And wherever you have people making judgments, there's going to be a couple of things that are going to go wrong. As well, you can factor in, you can use bodybuilding as well, for example. So we take boxing and bodybuilding. Ultimately, the winner is decided on someone's judgment call, someone's opinion. Now, this is supposed to be an objective opinion based on a certain set of criteria, but a lot of the time, people, whether they know it or not, they can be very subjective when they're not meant to be. So I'd first like to distinguish between a bad decision in boxing and a robbery in boxing. I think we can all agree, any sane person with eyes can agree that the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight was a robbery. Now I know a lot of Wilder fans will say otherwise, but I think we can all sit down and calmly analyse and say, yeah, that was a robbery. A bad decision, probably one of the most notable the most infamous decision that probably gained the most controversy is the Hagler-Leonard fight. Now, I think you can get different people watching that fight numerous times and they may come up with different results at the end of the day. I think a lot of people think that was a bad decision, but in fairness, I think a lot of rational-minded people can also say, well, they can appreciate why maybe the judge gave it to Hagler. They can appreciate why maybe the judge should have given it to Hagler. They can see why the judge gave it to Leonard. I think in the Hagler-Leonard fight, I think people who think it was a bad decision ultimately are Hagler fans. I don't think, human nature being what it is, I don't think a lot of Sugar Ray Leonard fans have a big issue because in the end, their guy won. So let's remember, difference between a robbery and difference between a bad decision. Now, how to deal with it, how to live with it, as fans, we just have to. As long as you're going to have people, you're going to have bad calls, you're going to have corruption, where judgment type decisions are what's going to decide the outcome. This is going to happen far too often. Now, ideally it shouldn't happen at all. But my take on it is this. I think you should treat a boxing match in some ways like you would treat a work of art, a painting, or a glass of wine. If you were to go into a museum tomorrow and you were to stop at a work of art, at a picture hanging on the wall, and you thought, okay, that's actually very nice. I really like that. I like what the artist is doing. I like the use of colours. I like the lines. I like the brush strokes. All the good stuff. I like all that. To me, that's a nice picture. Now, supposing into the fray comes an art critic, and that art critic says, well, actually, you know what? It's not the artist's best work. I don't like what he did with that colour. I don't like what he's trying to say. I don't like the angles of approach of. And he criticises and he says, in my opinion, that's not a good picture. What would you do? Would you change your own mind and say, oh, well, this guy is telling me it's not a good picture, so it mustn't be? No, stick to your own guns. You've made your decision. Sorry, now I just had to get some tea. You've made your decision. You like the picture. You like the painting. Ignore what he says. And I think sometimes with decisions, you're going to have to do that. Appreciate the fight for what it is. And again, another analogy, glass of wine. You're drinking a glass of wine and you know what? You think, that's nice. I like that. If you were to maybe go on YouTube and find that wine reviewed by a wine critic, what if they don't like it? What happens? Do you suddenly not like the wine that you previously liked just because someone else is telling you based on their opinion, how you should feel about it. Again, the wine and the painting for me, two analogies that when we're faced with a decision at the end of a fight that we've really enjoyed, especially one that we've really enjoyed, and the decision goes against the boxer you think should get it, and you're getting really frustrated, really annoyed at the level of perceived incompetence that came to that decision, forget what the judges say. Sit back and enjoy the fight for what it was. In your own mind, you can say, right, boxer A won the fight or boxer B won the fight. And sometimes you might just have to leave it at that. So again, unfortunately, we're just going to have, as boxing fans, we're going to have to live with this type of nonsense. But remember, many a time you're going to come up with something that you see as a bad decision purely based on your fighter didn't get it. Let's try and keep our annoyance to those type of decisions down to a minimum. But unfortunately, the robberies a la Fury and Wilder, I mean, they should never happen. They're so obvious. I mean, they're as obvious as the iceberg that the Titanic didn't see. And look what happened there. But as a fan, try and take out of those moments what you can. If it was a good fight, and in your eyes a bad decision, ignore the decision and just sit back and enjoy the fight as you saw it and as you enjoyed it. So thanks very much for listening. Until next time, goodbye.